Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. We have a Draftkings Showdown for Monday Night Football, the game between the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers, an NFC West divisional clash. This is going to be kind of an interesting game because of a couple of reasons. Obviously, the Rams brought in Odell Beckham Jr., and the Rams unfortunately also lost Robert Woods. So we have to discuss how we think that's going to play out in the Rams receiving core, as well as everything going on the other side of the ball for the 49ers offense. Jimmy Garoppolo, how they're dealing with the rookie Fields and how he's going to be deployed moving forward for the rest of the season, as well as now finally that entire pass game getting healthy. So it's a very interesting game from a showdown perspective because a lot of stuff isn't known. And I like it when there is daily fantasy in and of itself, much like poker, is a game of partial information, but the more partial information we have, the more edge we have if we choose correctly on what we map out to be the path that things are going to go. So I'm going to try and give you my thoughts on how this game is going to go. You are free to do whatever it is you want. If you disagree with my takes, you say, you know what, Al's crazy. He has nothing, doesn't know what he's doing. I don't agree with anything that he said. By all means, play the other stuff. All I care about is that you play it the right way when you're building your lineups. We're going to talk about all of that and how we're going to build lineups, whether by hand or whether using the Fantasy Labs lineup builder like we highlight on this show every single week. We're also going to take a look at a couple of pick'em plays over on Underdog Fantasy. So why don't we just get to it? Let's go.
He's a legend.
So as I said, we're going to start on Underdog Fantasy. We're going to get a couple of pick'ems for this week. There's a couple of things. I'm looking at the sheet. This is what they have for Monday Night Football. Stafford, rushing yards. This one can bite you if the Rams win and they actually kneel down because they have the ball last. This can definitely bite you at the end of the night. So I've seen people struggle with that in the past. 285 passing yards. San Francisco has not done a good job defensively. We're going to discuss that in just a little bit. Darrell Henderson, over 89.5 combined rushing and receiving yards, over 2.5 receptions, kind of looks tasty. I'm going to take over the 2.5 receptions, and then coming over down here, you have to pick somebody on both sides of the ball. And by the way, they're still doing a deposit match. So the first $100 that you deposit, you will get matched up to $100. So you'll have free money with which to bet. If you use promo code ALSMIZZLE, use code ALSMIZZLE when you make your first deposit onto Underdog Fantasy, and you get 10 free dollars as well. So let's pick somebody on this side. How about Deebo Samuel under 78.5? He's had a fantastic year, but with Ayuk now playing all of the snaps and seemingly out of the doghouse, hopefully, question mark, and George Kittle also back and healthy, there just may not be enough meat on the bone for Deebo to get over that 78.5. I'll scroll all the way up here to the top. We'll play this for $50 to win 150. We click submit. Yes, I confirm. And that's where we're going to go. Heading over to DraftKings for the showdown. And guys, if you wouldn't mind, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I know that subscribing costs no money, and a lot of people don't understand how it helps a content creator. It feeds the algorithm. So if you subscribe, if you're not subscribed, I know that like 43% of the people that watch my videos are not subscribed, and like 6 to 1 are returning viewers. So you're watching the videos. I appreciate you guys coming back time after time after time. But if you click that subscribe button, it really helps me out and it helps the channel out because it puts the video in front of a lot more new viewers and gets more people to the channel, which means more views, which helps me grow, which helps me put out more great content as the season rolls along and in the off season as well. So let's focus on the Rams first. The Rams have a team total of 26.75 here, one of the higher team totals on the week, not the highest, but this game is pretty close. Rams a 3.5-point favorite. Cooper Kupp has been absolutely outstanding. His role on the team is going to remain unchanged as he will probably run the majority of his routes out of the slot. He is still going to get a ton of usage, whether Odell Beckham Jr. is on this team or not. The question is, how are they going to deploy Odell now that he is here? And in the absence of Woods, who had been on this team for years, the question is OBJ going to be the one that's going to slide into the Robert Woods role, or is Van Jefferson going to be the one who slides into that Robert Woods role? I think it's going to flip as the season goes on. It's usually easier to change one person's role instead of changing two people's roles, especially on a short week of practice, new to the team, new to the playbook, new to the verbiage. It would make a lot more sense from a coaching game planning point of view, and look, maybe it's my fault for the assumption of rational coaching or trying to make this make too much sense, but Van Jefferson's fluency in the playbook after having this been his season and a half with the Rams would slide easier into that Robert Woods role, and just allow Odell Beckham Jr. to take over the Van Jefferson role, which is basically, hey, get open deep and we'll find you when we find you, right? That seems to be an easy way to deploy him in this first game. And then I believe that after a week or 2 or 3 of practice, I could see those roles flipping and Van Jefferson going back to his previous role in the offense with both Woods and Kupp, but now it would be Odell Beckham Jr. and Kupp, with Beckham playing the Woods role, Kupp being himself, and then Van Jefferson taking over those deep routes once again. But for this week, I think it's going to be flipped, and Beckham Jr. is going to be occupying the intermediate to deep routes, and then they're going to move Van Jefferson to those shorter roles. So let's take a look at what the Rams do in terms of total targets. 22.36% of the target market share have been vacated in this spot. I would also not be shocked to see Tyler Higbee play a larger role in this offense, at least in the short term, until they can get OBJ up to speed. He did play 97% of snaps. He has not been heavily used, or is not as heavily used as we thought he'd be. Still has a 15% market share. Darrell Henderson with about 9%. Van Jefferson has done a fantastic job at 16% in his second year in the system. So anytime if I'm building a lineup that's going to have Cooper Kupp at captain, I'm going to make sure that Stafford's in there in that lineup. Same thing if you're going to be playing Odell Beckham Jr. at captain. Same thing's going to happen if you play Higbee at captain. Same thing, I believe you should build that lineup if you have Van Jefferson at captain. But if we're going to be sliding Matthew Stafford in at captain, and I don't think that you can cover, even if you play 150 lineups, if you're playing mini max or if you're playing the large tournament, I'm not trying to cover every base. I'm trying to cover, I'm trying to do what the math says and put myself on the right side of it. Now, knowing historically that about 15% of all showdowns have been won with a quarterback at captain, and when the quarterback wins at captain, they've had a ridiculously efficient night, and they can support more than one pass catcher in that sort of a situation, right? Like usually if Kupp has like a 2 touchdown night with 100 yards and 10 catches, he's going to end up being the captain over Stafford, or the optimal captain over Matthew Stafford. But if Stafford throws 4 touchdowns and he throws them to like 4 different receivers, and nobody has that super standout night, but he has like 4 touchdowns, 350 yards, and they're all kind of spread out, nobody has a dominant receiving day, we're going to build that group, because again, if you're putting him in at captain, it's got to be built for the situations where he's going to be the optimal captain. I'm going to build another group here that's going to have every single one of the viable pass catchers and the kicker from the Rams in those situations. I'm also going to build a second group that's going to basically have all of the offensive players from San Francisco, including the quarterback, but not including the San Francisco kicker, Samuel, Kittle, Ayuk, even Eli Mitchell, everybody else, not the defense, not the kicker. I'm not going to disallow them from appearing in that lineup, because a defense can have a big night on kick returns. Defense can have a big night on a quick pick six, as we saw last week when, you know, the Titans were in that lineup, and they were in that lineup with a lot of, you know, or sorry, not the Titans, but the Dolphins with Lamar Jackson in a situation where he had a good enough night to have to be in that lineup, but also the Dolphins defense had to be in there too. So I'm not disallowing them, but I'm not forcing them either. Taking a look at the other side of the ball, Eli Mitchell has been pretty darn good recently. And like, I hate to be the eyeball guy, but like, he looks good when he's running it. You know, like every time they hand Eli Mitchell the ball, you look marvelous. Every time he runs it, he just looks spry. I don't have another word for it. He just looks like he's got juice, and he's out there about to do damage. Now on the other, you know, looking at it, who's behind him? Last week it was Hasty, but he's out. Right? Like he was taking some snaps from him. Now we've got Jeff Wilson Jr., who's probably going to see his first carries of the season. And there's always the possibility that Juszczyk could vulture something, but like this could be Eli all alone this week in the backfield, which could lead to another one of these 18 plus, 17 plus touch games. And they might have to utilize him in the passing game as well, just because they just don't have a lot of guys that they can go with. And the Rams are a very good defense, and for them to sustain drives, it is what it is. A lot of calls for Jimmy Garoppolo. Very handsome, but, you know, everybody wants to see Trey Lance. And what I think could happen here is, like, we could see some Trey Lance packages around the goal line if they get inside the 5-yard line, where if you've got Jimmy G and he's in there, he's actually having a good night, they get inside the 5 and they're going to roll out that Trey Lance read option package once they get close. That can really hold down Jimmy G. I don't know if I want to have any shares in captain, but just in case you do, we're going to build that same group where we have all of the pass catchers, which we're going to get to in just a second, including the kicker. Probably not going to include Mitchell because of his sporadic use in the passing game. If you wanted to include Dwelly, if you want to include Scherfeld, if you want to include the kicker, all of those things should be in that group. Before we take a look over there, I did want to remind you about our fundraiser that we're doing with No Kid Hungry. We are over 18,000, approaching 19,000. When we hit 20,000 as a community, I will match with another 10,000 of my own dollars. I've already committed $20,000 to this fundraiser. The community has raised over 18,000. When you get to 20, and I think that we may get there by kickoff of week 11, you guys are just doing an absolutely fantastic job. Thank you very much. And if you've enjoyed the content this season, if you've benefited from the content this season, if you had a winning week in week 10, please take a couple seconds, go to smizzle.tv/charity. There's also a link down below in the description, and through Tiltify, donate a little money to No Kid Hungry. Every dollar helps, and 1 in 6 kids in America are suffering from food insecurity. And look, we can do something about it. So why don't we just do that as a group? All right, Smizz Gang, thank you very much. The San Francisco 49ers target tree does not look like a tree. It looks like the letter L on its side. Deebo Samuel has soaked up the majority of the targets on this team. Now, a lot of that is because George Kittle was out for the majority of the year, and apparently Brandon Ayuk did things that made the coach really angry. So, like, he just had him running wind sprints every single Sunday. I think Kittle and Ayuk both bounce. Now, their target percentage that's listed here on NFL Savant is based on every single game. So it's not like the games that Kittle's been healthy, he's seen 13.5% of targets. That's on the season, all attempts, all games, everywhere. Samuel's going to dip from this 32%. It's just not sustainable. One, with Ayuk now playing a full complement of snaps and his talent level and George Kittle coming back, this is going to dip, and I think it could dip to somewhere around like 22 to 24% for the rest of the season, so long as Kittle and Ayuk stay healthy. So I think that it's viable to play them, right? And we talked about having them there. If you wanted to kind of break the rule, I still think if Deebo Samuel has a great day, that Garoppolo has to be in that lineup. If Ayuk has a captain viable game, then Garoppolo is going to be throwing multiple touchdowns to him. Same thing goes if you're going to be playing, if you're going to be playing George Kittle at the captain spot, Garoppolo should be tied to him as well. I just don't think that there's any way that Deebo Samuel is going to maintain the target market share that he's enjoyed this entire season. Fantastic player, great athlete, love the skill set, and I just don't see a way that this volume is going to sustain now that everybody's healthy and hopefully out of the doghouse, at least in terms of Ayuk. So let's go over to Fantasy Labs. And we talked about all those rules that we're going to build. I also built that last group, which I don't really show you guys anymore because you kind of get it. Captain quarterback with at least 2 of their pass catchers and kicker. Captain quarterback with at least 1 of the offensive players from the opposing team. Your captain wide receiver with exactly 1 quarterback from the same team. Pair your tight end with this quarterback from his team. And at most 1 defense or kicker from the same game. I only limit, like, I'm not forcing 1, right? I'm not saying exactly 1. I'm saying at most 1 defense or kicker in any lineup. I want to focus on upside. I want position players, PPR, all of that. I will get kickers in there. I will get defenses in some lineups, but I don't want more than 1. And then the player group that we're going to build, any players that you feel are going to be like 20% or down, 25% or less, I'm going to force at least 1 of them, not 2, but 1 of them into every lineup. And then obviously the general rules, 90% of the salary cap. I'm willing to leave 10% on the table. I don't let a kicker or a defense into the captain spot. Yes, every once in a while, a kicker or a defense will end up winning. And if they do, I'm probably just being the optimal captain. And if they do, guess what? I'm just not going to win that showdown. But the majority of them, I'm going to be in the money to be able to do it. And the kicker and defense and captain is massively overplayed. So you're putting yourself on the wrong side of the math if that was the way that you are going to roll. So I'd like to stay on the good side of the math. We'll apply those settings. We'll come over here. We'll just sort by projected points, and it's going to build the lineups for us. I have not set any sort of limitations on captains. I have not set my low percentage player group to differentiate, because ideally, look, you're always going to split when it comes to, very rarely are you going to win solo at a showdown slate. So what we're trying to do is, if we do end up in that top spot at the end of the game, you want to do it holding hands with as few people as possible, 5, 10 people optimally, and you split that $1 million up top with very few friends, as opposed to if you play a very chalky lineup with all of the most popular plays and the most popular combination wins, those people are going to split with 3, 4, 500, 900 people, and you end up winning like 1,000 or 2,000. When you win, I want you to win like I won earlier this season. If you win it, you take home like 100,000 plus. So that's it, guys. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.